So a very, very, very warm welcome to our summer event, which is a little bit more summery than we had maybe planned when we put it into the calendar. I think last year we held this in July. We moved it forward to June so that we maybe it would be a bit cooler, and then here we go. So it's in one of the heat waves. So presenting a slide like this it's almost preaching to the converted. You are here, you are at the summer event, you are obviously involved with the KE Hub, but just a little bit before we get going, and as a reminder of what we do and what we're aiming to do, and what we have been doing for the past few years. So the KE Hub's vision is to be outward facing and to be inclusive. What we're looking for is making sure that we have this excellent mathematical sciences talent, and that can be being applied to challenges for business, industry and government. So part of the reason for today is to bring those people together and have some networking, listen to some great talks, do some networking and listen to some panelists talking about a particular challenge. And that's the aim of it, is to kind of strengthen those connections and bring people together. Our 5, I guess, key points: scale up, connect, support, deliver, and coordinate. And we're particularly looking at that connection today. The other thing that we are looking at, and you'll see kind of coming through with the keynote and the panel in particular, is thinking about enterprising thinking within mathematical sciences, and some kind of level of not 100% entrepreneurship, but that definitely forms a big part of it. So entrepreneurship, enterprising thinking, being imaginative, starting new things. So that is something we're really bringing out with the keynote and with the panel later. So those of you who are here will know we are definitely maths area agnostic. So we are not going to say you have to be in one particular area of maths in order to do KE. And we are looking at engaging with all sizes of business, industry and government, all sectors, all levels of mathematical expertise, and building, as I say, building those relationships, answering those key questions. And just on the right are people who support us on the right, the INI, the ICMS, and obviously EPSRC. So what are we going to talk about today? We start with a keynote. When I finish talking, we'll go to Dwayne, who's chairing, and Sophie, who's giving the keynote, and looking very much at that interface between academia and business. And Sophie will get a brief introduction then, but she doesn't need much of an introduction, very well known. Then we'll have a break, and then we will go into the speed networking. Some of you will have been here last year, and we have perfected, for those of you who were here last year, we have, well, I won't say we've perfected the system, but we have practiced long and hard, and it will be a smooth process, I'm sure. It worked really well. People really liked it last year, so we have come back and tried it again. You get, essentially what will happen is 10-minute conversations in small groups of about 3 or 4 people. At the end of those 8 to 10 minutes, it was likely to be, we will break you up and we will move you into a different group. So you should get to talk to lots of different people. We've kind of set up the groups already to who's talking to who. There will be some moving around if there are people missing, but we will work that out at the time. But you will get a chance to have those really kind of in-depth conversations. In an online meeting, it's hard to make connections in kind of big groups, but in groups of 3 or 4, you can have a proper conversation. So that's the reason for doing it that way. So that is coming up for now. We then have a break, and then we go into a panel session. So as I talked about earlier, one of the themes today is that kind of thinking in an enterprising way, whether you are in business, industry and government, or whether you're in academia. The skills are really important. And we have Jamie Foster from Portsmouth, Tori Pereira from Goldman Sachs, and Caroline Thompson from Set Squared speaking later, with Dan Lawson, who's one of the KE Hub management team chairing that session. So that should be great. We've got some set questions to start with, but there's definitely lots of time for you to ask the panelists questions then. So it's going to be relatively, hopefully a bit interactive as well.
Right, okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Dewey Zhou. I'm one of the co-leads of the KE Hub, and I'm a professor of statistics at Lufkin University. I'm delighted to chair this keynote session today. It is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Sophie Carr. Sophie is the founder and owner of Base Consulting, a company whose mission is to build a better future using math, not magic. Trained as an aeronautic engineer, she later developed an interest in decision-making under uncertainty and completed a PhD on Bayesian belief networks at Cranfield University. She then founded Base Consulting, which has grown into a successful international business delivering projects around the world. Her career is a fantastic example of how mathematical sciences can create real impact beyond academia. Alongside her business achievement, Sophie is a highly respected leader within the mathematical sciences community. She serves on the executive committee of the Academy for the Mathematical Sciences, the General Council of the Institute of Mathematics and its Applications, and several university industrial advisory boards. Today's talk is titled Fluent, in both the rewards of translating between academia and business. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Sophie.
Thank you ever so much for that. I really appreciate it. I am here to talk about how to flick between academia and business. But I will say that a lot of my expertise and is from small business. I started out in government. So I started out, my first ever job was with what's now called DSTL. So for business, take business, industry, government. But I come from a really small business perspective because my company, we fall between about 10 and 15, depending on the time of the year. But the reason I wanted to talk about being fluent in both is really about those different languages. So I started out at university. I went to Bath, absolutely loved Bath, did engineering. My first actual maths degree is from Manchester, and I did applied maths because I did one statistics course at Bath and hated it, and so I'd never do any more statistics again. And then I got a proper job, and I went to work for DERA, which became DSTL, which most people I think have heard of, and that's a really sort of research-based institution. And it was there that I actually did my PhD. I think that was really important for how my career has gone, because I did my PhD part-time. I did it in the evenings and the weekends, and I was allowed to take one day a month in training to go to the university, and I took one day a month if I worked extra hours. So I got a day off in lieu, essentially, and that was the days I had at Cranfield, down at Shrivenham in the Defence College. So I sat in this world from the moment I started work, albeit a relatively research institution, cutting across and learning to talk between the academics when I was at Cranfield and Shrivenham and the people at work who were government, but definitely weren't academic researchers per se. And what I realised was that I was having to learn two languages, but only talk the right one at the right time. So the truth was that most people at DSTL weren't really interested in a PhD on Bayesian belief networks and sensor fusion, because it wasn't really a thing back then, and it was just sort of some really nice esoteric PhD that was talking about how you can find information and sort of that missing needle in a haystack. And nobody really heard about it until 9/11, and then suddenly it became a bit more interesting to people. But at university, nobody particularly worried about the fact that I was busy at work, and they wanted to talk to me about beautiful proofs and how my work was going and what was I worrying about the prior distributions and how was I coming up with that. So I sort of learned to flick between the two. And then through nobody's fault, DSTL shut the Farnborough site and I got made redundant. I had literally just got my PhD, and I was pregnant with my second child, and the site shut. And I didn't really know what to do, but I had just got a PhD in Bayesian networks, and it was 2008, 2009. So I said to my husband, what I'll do is I will simply contract for a couple of years till our youngest is in nursery, and then I'll get a proper job. I'll get a proper job and it'll all be okay. And the thing is, I never quite have gone back to getting a proper job. Now, over those years since then, lots of my friends stayed in academia, and I knew it wasn't the place for me to stay. I wouldn't have enjoyed it. But I had lots of friends who were there, and I did really, really like Bayesian statistics. So I ended up, to keep talking about maths, which I really enjoyed, I joined the Royal Statistical Society and the Institute of Maths, its applications, and the OR Society. And that meant that I got to talk with other people about maths and stay in that maths community. And over time, other businesses I worked with started to say to me, hey, do you know any universities or any academics that we could work with? We need to find some partnerships. We're trying to find somebody to come in on a bid. And it surprised me about how few business and industry people I knew anybody who also worked at university. So I just started to put people in touch. And eventually Bayes got to the point where I was like, okay, we now need to start working with the universities. And I figured that it would be fine because I knew academics, I knew people at universities, and how hard could it be? And it turned out to be really hard. Really, really hard. And it's taken probably about 10 years to get to the point where we now regularly work with universities. But at the start, I didn't think it was me. I just thought that they weren't ready to run a small business. And so I'm going to talk about what's gone really, really well, the benefits we've got from it, and some of the things that I think are probably worth thinking about when people try and do knowledge exchange that maybe get a bit lost. So I'm going to start with really positive about why would you bother to learn 2 languages? Why do you bother to be able to talk to academia, and why do you bother being able to talk to business? And for us as a small business, it's absolutely critical. And there's 2 photos here to talk about what I think is the best things we've done at universities. So we built during COVID, during 2020, Consulting, my company built a tool that's used by independent food banks to predict where the need for food banks is going to be. But it was a lower level than other people were able to do. And a lot of that was because we had really good stats training, and we actually ended up giving some of our work over to the Trussell Trust. But since COVID, we've extended that, and that was working with academics at universities. We've also worked with universities on projects such as finding brick kilns in India and Pakistan, illegal brick kilns, which actually are part of modern day slavery. Now, they're really cool projects, and that has ended up being a genuine collaboration between academia and industry. But we couldn't have done that without putting in the hard work earlier. And I speak foreign languages as well. I think it's just a good thing to be able to talk to other people in a way that they will listen, in a way that actually people understand. And I think that's the crucial part about all of this. So I know that you don't need convincing about what is important about knowledge exchange and knowledge transfer. But I think one of the problems we have is when you use the phrase knowledge exchange and knowledge transfer, you're actually underselling about what is occurring. Because when it's done really, really well, it isn't about actually exchanging. In my mind, what you actually do, what you try and get from all of this is translation. Because it isn't ever a word for word knowledge exchange. What we need to try and get across is the sentiment and the context and the meaning, and really start to get both sides of whether it's academics and industry or academics and government or even industry and government. It's what is it that's needed to get people to talk, and part of that is somebody, usually the person working in knowledge exchange, has to be able to sit down and get both sides to say, look, you're going to get something really, really good if we can find a common way for you to be able to talk. Because if we don't, what happens is somebody goes away and does a brilliant piece of work, and that might be an academic or it might be somebody in industry, and the other side looks at it and goes, well, what am I meant to do with that? Or why has that taken so long? Or I literally don't understand what it means, or I don't see how I can apply it, or what's the benefit to me now? Because both sides have different requirements, and if in a maths term, both of them have different optimization functions. So when we start to look at what knowledge exchange is to me, really it's people who can genuinely translate, and that is such a skill in any language. Now, I think another point where, particularly when we started to understand why we weren't being able to get the level of engagement we wanted with the universities at the start, and it really also comes down to a small business issue, is I know lots of amazing mathematicians. I'm really lucky to count amongst my friends, mathematicians, statisticians, mathematical scientists, you can almost pick your word. And they will tell me in unbelievable detail about all the stuff that they do. And it's really exciting and it's ever so cool. I also know lots of business owners, and I'm one of them, who will just wax lyrical about what they love about what their business does. But the problem is neither side can be terribly good at selling, because they're not sales people. We have sales teams in businesses. I send them out to go and talk to people and ask if they want to buy some of the work we do. But if you're not able to say what it is that you do in a way that says, hey, this would be really good because it solves the pain point you have now, or it solves the pain point that you're going to have in a couple of months, then actually you're not getting to a point where the other side is going to hand over their very hard-earned cash to buy that. And I say that because we all know that money's short, whether you're talking about grants or research money or profit. Because as a small business, if I want to pay for an academic, or I want to pay for R&D, it fundamentally comes out the bottom line, which means that I can't build up a reserve, or I won't be able to give a pay rise, or I won't be able to send people on training. And how do you get people to get to the point where both sides can sell and say, I have this pain point and I think you can solve it, and I can solve your problem? Because if the company isn't selling themselves as somebody they want to work, you want to work with, that the academic can't see how they're going to be able to engage with people in there, and the business can't see what the academic is going to do for them in terms of pain points or bluntly a return on investment, then it doesn't matter if you're reframing the problem or having triage workshops. That to me is the translation point that we need to solve first. And you can call it formulating the problem, but you really need to find a way. And that, I think, has been one of the biggest skills that we've actually had to learn as a company. Now, we do have people who have PhDs in the company, but both of us, myself and Adam, would say we're probably not the best people. We can talk to academics because that's what you do when you sort of get a PhD. But actually, we have much better people, people in the company who are much better able to say, hey, look, this is the nub of the problem right now. This is the pain point we have, and can you fix it? So I think the other thing that we've learned over the years as we started to work with the universities is I've had to sort of take a step back. One of the things when we first engaged with the universities is, oh, you know, there's amazing academic rigor. It's like, okay, but actually there's also a lot of rigor in all of the research that's done in industries and business, and even in small business. And I think it can be quite hard for businesses to understand the differences between academic rigor and what you need to publish and the rigor that they need, and also for academia sometimes to understand that the level of detail of research that goes on in industry frankly can match. There are areas of research that overlap between industry and academia, and they are equal. Now, it might be that there's more blue sky research going on in universities, but I would say that rigor was a word that we found really hard to overcome. We always give robust, defendable, explainable results. That's what we do as a company when we were a pure consulting. And I spend a lot of time being Gandalf, and I talk about that quite a lot. So I spend a lot of time saying what you really want to be able to do is give the team time to think, and that there are some problems which just throwing more people at won't solve. There are problems where you need to genuinely just have a think, and you need to try things out, and you need to see what fails, and you need to try different approaches. And we're not saying that we're going to have the perfect solution the first time round. That can be really hard for our clients to hear. And it's really hard as a business to understand that when you work in research and knowledge exchange, it isn't going to be a perfect result or a linear result every time. There's going to be that give and take, and the more that you engage in the process and the more you talk and understand what's going on, that will help everybody. And I think there's also that point, there's sort of an unsaid fear that I think sits between academics and industry, and IP is only a tiny part of it. So yes, academics want to publish, we all know that, and I think everybody understands that. Understanding what can be published, how it can be published, what you might have to give over to an academic in order for them to help you, what is it that you're going to be giving, that just takes a grown-up conversation. And we've managed to get to know enough universities now where we can sit down and say, hey, look, this is the red line, this is what we won't ever tell you about our research that we do in-house, it can never be published, but we can find ways to work with you, and we want to work because we want to be seen to be a company that works with academia. We want to be seen as a company who works at really cutting edge research in-house and with academics. IP, I think, is often used as sort of a panacea. Well, we just can't do it because we won't hand it over. When actually, if you can both explain what you're worried about, you know, these few inches of code, which is critically important, but we can talk about the rest of it, or academics worried that they won't be properly credited, or they won't be able to get the impact that they want out of this. If you can find a way to have that, then I think everybody benefits from the rigor that each side actually brings. I also think that we've had to learn to understand what we can give. So sometimes we've got data and results that academic institutions don't have. I'm also really aware that we can access journals and papers and things like that, which we can't access. So I think understanding what both sides brings often just starts with having a really good cup of coffee and saying, look, this is just the truth. This is what we're worried about. This is what we don't want to happen. And the other side saying the same. And then over time, having those conversations and just building up a really, really good working relationship. What we do need to be able to do though is defend. So I want to introduce you to Hugh. Here he is. Hugh is our lead engineer, and he is a really, really good, I think you'd probably call him a solutions architect or an engineering manager. He sort of cuts across both. He is the person in our company who translates between the data scientists and the software engineers, full stack developer, model engineers. And what he does is really understand about how we're going to build our solutions, what the scientists are doing, and then how the coders can make it quick, efficient, and all of those things. And it's Hugh, along with our project manager, Bacola, who will come to me and say, hey, we think we should invest in, or we should start to get some research on the go, and we think that it needs to come from academia, or we need to buy a consultant who can help us. But when they both come to me to say that, they know that it cannot, under any circumstances, be a vanity project, that we are not doing this just for the love of the research. We can't, because to do that means that we're becoming an academic institution or a research institution, and we're not. Every single penny that we spend on this has to have an attached return on investment. So it might be that we can deliver the project far more quickly and free up our own internal resources to over deliver. It might be that we are de-risking because we've only got a little bit of knowledge, we need some more. It might be that it's a really specific piece of research and just don't have an in-house capability. Whatever it is, we can only do it if the expenditure is completely justified. And we also have to be able to defend going upwards. So Hugh has to defend Bacola has to defend me, and I'm the one who holds all the risk. If you want to know what I fear, and I know I've talked about fear on the last slide, bluntly, I need to make sure that when we do this, that what we're going to get is going to be on time, of the quality we need, that are directly applicable, and we don't need to do the rework. And everybody's got hot stories. But whenever we go out to start to work with a new institution or a new organisation, that's the thing that I worry about most. And if we can't defend what we're doing and we can't defend what we're going to gain from it, then it's a non-starter. But it's not just about de-risking and making sure we can deliver. We also want to know what we're going to get from it in terms of what will we be able to carry forwards. So what are we going to learn? Because that's really, really important to us, that there is that exchange. And when it goes well, we start to pick up new methods, we start to get better at coding, we start to have ideas about where we can apply things in other areas. We upskill the whole team, by the way, when it's 12 and you've got 9 of them in the tech team, it's really, really important that we can do that. I fundamentally have to balance how much money I think is available to spend on knowledge exchange, academics and research, with what that's going to be able to give me for future innovation. And it's like trying to do a crystal ball, because as much as I would love to put everything we have into that, it's no good doing the research if the company goes under in 6 months. And so I am naturally hesitant about trying to go forwards. And I think if you can find from the academic point of view that sort of horizon scanning, this is the way it's going, this is where we think it's going to be applicable now and in 3 months, 6 months, 12, 24 months, this is the way the techs are going, and I can see that fits in with our roadmaps of what we're trying to deliver and build, that really, really helps. And again, a lot of that comes down from both being able to articulate about what you're worried about and having those sometimes hard but really open conversations. I think it would be remiss to do this and not talk about speed. So I will let you decide across your business, industry, government, who's the head, who's the voice. I will say here and now that I have ripped my hair out at the speed with which both big industry and academia have run. I find it harder, and I have learned to understand that big companies, have more people sign things off and longer processes, and you can't circumnavigate those, just like we have internal processes at Bayes which we have to follow and we can't break because we would lose our ISO status. A process is a process and you have to learn to trust it. Equally, I know that as you build those relationships, you can move really, really fast. And I'm going to talk about that later on when I talk about some of the universities we worked with. We can now, with some universities, get a bid out of the door in 5 working days. And that's Monday to Friday. That's not sort of going over the weekends. It is hard. It is hard. And we try to be as flexible and as we can be. But one of our constraints is that we often only have a matter of days or 2 to 3 weeks to respond to a tender. And if we want to bring academics in on that, that's the time frame that we need people to be able to respond in. And that includes getting the academics on board, getting contracts, getting legal sign-off, getting everything in place. Now, we can only do that with institutions who we know well. And so we're forever building those, but it can work. So you can time for some participation, something for you to think about. So there's 3 words there: proof, risk, impact. If you want to think about those in terms of what does it mean to an academic, what does it mean to government, what does it mean to big business, and what does it mean to small business, then you start to see about how things might be taken differently and why you're needed to do this epic translation. And I think one of the great examples for me is a proof of concept. So we do proof of concept all the time in the hope that they will turn into paying trials and into sort of dev code, or we do proofs of concepts for people to say, hey, look, you wanted to know if these stats would work. We've got some really nifty statisticians. Let's show you what we can do. The problem is what people think of as a proof of concept. Is it going to be something that says, yeah, we had a thing and yeah, but it's probably got legs? Or is it something where you've got, hey, we've done a bit more and you've got some code here, and they're probably just marked down in GitHub, and we can give you the code, and you can see what you're going to go to. Or does somebody think that a proof of concept is actually fully working code that's been tested, debugged, ready to go, and now just needs scaling? And we've done all of those. And the problem is when people think they're getting one thing and they get another. And impact, again, are you worrying about impacts? So you can go and put these into reviews. Are you worried about showing that the work you've done is giving an ROI? It's really hard to come up with a shared reality and a shared understanding of what these things mean, but these are words that cut across everything that we do. So when you're thinking about how to do this, one of the things we've learned very quickly is we almost start off with, you've asked for a proof of concept, and this is what we mean by one, and do you have another word for it? And actually just having that shared wording and language of when we're writing reports of we're not going to use this word, or if we use a word we mean this. It's really, really helped us start to build up those relationships. So when has it not worked? Sometimes frustratingly it just doesn't work. One of the examples we have, and I will not name the university in this case, but a piece of work came up and I knew a couple of academics with fantastic expertise in it, reached out to them. We've known each other far longer than I think we all want to admit. Like, great, yeah, on board, fantastic. We got permission to bid together, we put the bid in, and super, we won. I mean, that's just great, we won, we got the money. So I've got the contract, and it gets to the point that I literally can't give the university the money. I literally can't get on final contract with them. And it's really frustrating because it's a super project and it was some really cool stats that had real world impact. But what happened was, yes, we got permission to bid and all of that was sorted, and we bid, we won, but it was coming up to some holidays. So what we couldn't do, or what we didn't seem to be able to do, was get through all the procedures of getting the contracts finalised, getting legal approval. And whilst the academics could have come on as independent consultants, they'd never done that before. That's really scary, because just saying, oh, it's all right, set your own business up and you can do that. You can, but you really can't do it very quickly, or at least not safely and quickly. So we ended up having to walk away, and we worked with other people. What we learned from that was that with that university at that time, we didn't know the right people to talk to, which is super sad. Now we do, and hopefully will work again. Some universities just have longer lead times than others, and some don't. But I think with hindsight, what happened here was, I don't think the time of year helped us. I don't think we actually expected to win, but we did, which was great. But also just understanding the realities that sometimes the process isn't going to work, and you have to move on. And nothing was personal, and we'll try again in another one, in another time. But sometimes you succeed. So I want you to meet Doreen. If you don't know Professor Doreen Boyd, she is epic. She's based at the Rights Lab, and I mentioned earlier we did some work on brick kilns. We've actually got to the point with Doreen where we've done, I think it's 5 or 6 contracts with her now. We can get through in a week. We've worked with her postdocs. We know the legal team well. We know who to talk to for contracts. We know who to talk to for terms and conditions. We're really open about talking about our rates, where we're going to go, how we're going to bid for things together. And it's absolutely fantastic. Fun fact about Doreen, she found the world's tallest flowering tree in Borneo. I mean, it's just really cool. So we've now worked on a whole range of projects with her, and that really spurred us on to start to see about where else we might be able to do knowledge exchange and how we can work with academia. So after about 18 months, I think it is, we've been talking back and forth. We're super excited that in September we have our first postdoc fellow, for which we are going to be the business department. That's going to be at the University of Birmingham, which is phenomenal for us, and a little bit, if I'm truthful, a little bit terrifying, and has taken lots of conversations about what the postdoc's going to be working on, about where her work overlaps with our crowd modelling, about how we can support her, about how she's going to sit with us, about what we can give her, what she wants to talk to us about. I mean, it's really scary because we don't want to let her down, but we're really, really hopeful that that's going to provide something which will then start even more of a conversation. We also have really strong links with the University of Greenwich. In fact, we have 3 of their graduates with us. And with that, it's been much more about how we can help talk to the students, particularly when they're in their final year, about what it means to go and work for consultancies or for small businesses, about how you can start to have those language with maths sharing. And we've also now, we regularly do master's students projects, and we do those sometimes with Birmingham, sometimes with Edinburgh, and ones with Manchester. And it really is about increasing our ability to talk to academics, to talk to them about the projects we might have, and just building on that success. So I would say it has definitely been worth it. It's really been hard, but the success is starting to pay off, and it makes our team really excited to keep their maths and stats skills up, talking with people who work in academia. So for all of how hard it is, a lot of the times I guess, well, why would we bother? Why do I need to do this? So I think some of the things we learned from being able to talk to between business and academia, it's taught us patience, and it's taught us the importance of playing the long game, of really investing the time to get to know universities. And I'm not saying that these will be the only universities we'll ever work with. We try and build with a wide range of links with a wide range of universities, but it is about building strong networks and really getting to know people so that you can have those genuine conversations of, like, what are you scared of? Why are we hitting a wall? Why can we not make this work? But also me being able to say that sometimes when we're looking at the grants where academics need a business to work with them, we can sit there and say, look, we're ever so sorry, but this is not financially viable for us, because either we're not able to cover our costs because of the way that the mechanism is through some of the Innovate UKRI fundings for business, or we don't have the 10% upfront to be able to invest in it right now, maybe in the next call. And that works once you know people really well. Why bother? Well, honestly, we've made some brilliant friends, like genuinely some brilliant friends, and we get to keep our maths up and we get to keep our stats up. It lets the tech team have that fun of just working on cool maths and statistics problems within the application we do. And we have people who regularly go, do you know what, maybe I want to do another course, or maybe I'm thinking I'm doing a master's or that type of work. And for us, that's really, really important. It also just helps us in the fact that we know who to reach out to and say, hey, do you know any papers, or can we bounce some ideas? And it works both ways with academics coming to talk to us. And if you put all of that together, then we are helping meet our mission and vision of building a better future and a better world using maths, not magic. And we've had that tagline for a really long time now. But as AI has risen up, actually being able to say that we do maths and statistics, that's what we do. And I think we do it well, but we can explain it to you. Yes, we might use neural nets and they're a little bit more complicated to explain. But by keeping our core knowledge of maths and stats really high, then that's a good thing. And I probably evangelize about that more than to more businesses than they probably want to hear. So for me, that is the nub of why being fluent is important. It has really good business impact. It really can help us when it's done well, and when both sides are open and honest about what they're scared about, what they want to get out of this, and what money is available. And all of that comes from just starting to build the networks and have the conversation. So I will stop at my allotted 32 minutes for questions. I'll ask you some questions, but I would say if you are doing knowledge exchange with a small business, or maybe even big business, I would ask those questions in orange. I think they help move things forward, because if they can articulate what they're worried about, what their pain point is, who's going to sign off on actually getting this done, and if they actually care about the project, like, does what you're proposing sound fun and interesting to them, you've probably got a really good starting base for finding knowledge exchange that will work for both sides. And actually your role as the translation in the middle of it will hopefully be fun, but also produce something that makes the world a better place. Okay, so I will stop there and hopefully answer any questions that you've got, or not if you don't have any.
Yes, people, please use the Q&A for asking questions. Okay, while people type in your questions in the chat, in Q&A, I would like to thank you, Sophie, once again. Thank you for this fantastic keynote. I think here I totally agree with your ideas. For example, knowledge exchange is not only about transfer knowledge to someone else, it's more about how you translate and using proper language. So I think that's a great idea. And of course, it's difficult. We need to learn. So takeaways is like for academics, we need to rethink how we engage with BIG partners in the future using right language. And when academics, we interested in particular mathematicians, we're interested in provide elegant approach solutions, but that's really the industry partners need. And for BIG partners, bear with us. Okay, we try to provide as good as possible. Perfect result for you. So I think from BIG, so we have some BIG partners here. Probably you can think about how you engage with universities. So I think they are all very practical ideas here. So let's see if we have any questions here. Yeah, okay. So some projects must involve multiple areas of math and perhaps also other disciplines. Does that lead to any challenges?
So yes, so we have in the company, we have mathematicians and we have statisticians, but by no means do we cover all areas of maths and stats. So what we tend to do is see what we can cover and then find out what we don't know. And we're really open about what we don't know. And that's when we start reaching out either to academia or to other businesses and just saying, hey, have you got somebody who can come and work on this project with us? Because we don't have this specific skill set. A lot of it, again, goes back to saying, building up those networks of who do we know in that. Sometimes people will ask to go on training courses. More often than not these days, if it's for a short project, we'll just bring somebody in. But yeah, we've got applied mathematicians, one pure mathematician, and quite a lot of statisticians. So not all areas, but enough to get going.
Good, thank you. And one question from Robin, who is the representative of earlier career researchers. So how should early career mathematical scientists in academia get involved in knowledge exchange with small businesses?
Find a friend who works in one and ask them. Honestly, that is the best way to find out where the pain points sit. The truth is that most of my academic contacts are probably about my age now, because they stayed in academia when I sort of ran away and went to work at government and industry. So I would say find your friends who are in small businesses and start talking to them. That is the best way. Like, just go and find people who are in small businesses. Most small business owners won't know that maths can solve a lot of their problems. That's the truth, because they won't know how to articulate their problem as a maths problem. To them, it's probably not. What it probably is a cutting edge AI, and then just put whatever buzzwords are going around the newspapers at the time. So if you can get to talk to a business owner and say, hey, did you know that that's probably just some good stats, or that's probably just a bit of linear algebra, or whatever it is that fixes their problem, go find them to talk to. If you can't find them, honestly, go on to something like the Federation of Small Businesses, where lots of small businesses have listings of what they do, and start reaching out and talking to them. That would be my advice, Robin. Just find them, or email me, because I think we know each other, don't we?
Okay, thank you. Another question. I share your pain in setting up contracts for consultancy projects. Have you explored framework agreements with preferred providers to enable fast turnaround on commissioning short projects?
We have tried with universities. We have tried, and never succeeded in a framework agreement with universities ever. We've just not managed it. Maybe it's just us, but we've not managed it. We are on some bigger government frameworks, so we're on with those. But for universities, we've never managed it. If you know how to do that, please get in contact. yeah, we just can't, haven't. I don't know why.
Okay, we have Colin, you raise your hand up. Is there something you want to add to the discussion?
Sure, I accidentally put it underneath Chris Brewer's question when I was trying to make it an actual question. And I think James Harris pointed out there's also another comment there that's a good question. So, so my question was about this perspective from the business, industry, and government side of curiosity-driven research as being a vanity project. And so then, there won't be any kind of justified ROI. And so, it just won't run on that grounds. But I'm wondering if you can make an argument that if the work is in an important active area that has potential for transformative impact, that you could treat this as part of your investment portfolio, your research investment portfolio, that might be higher risk, but also much higher return if it pays off. So therefore, it would be like a small part of your portfolio, like 10 or 20% or something like this, compared to your more conservative ROI arguments. So I'm just wondering how flexible this perspective is about vanity projects versus, slightly riskier ROI where you don't have a guarantee and doesn't make sense for people to budget some portion of their, business investment on that kind of work.
So I think there's two sides to that. So at Bayes, we have a product that we sell, which is a crowd model. So we spend a lot of time researching, developing that crowd. So we have a roadmap about what we think we should do to make that crowd better, for want of a better phrase, around behaviours, interactions, all of that. Now we have a prioritised research for that, and that sits within what we think we need to do. If somebody comes up and wants to do some research which has nothing to do with Bayes crowd, nothing to do with any of our active paying clients, they're going to need an incredibly good reason for doing it in the business. And the truth is that would probably have to sit under a vanity project. We have a tiny proportion to, you want to go and spend a few hours having, but the margins that most small businesses run off, allocating it for something that isn't a business project and isn't our core deliverables, it's just really hard. It will often vary about, bluntly, how well we're doing, what the reserves are looking like, but it is the vanity. If we're going to specifically go out and work with an academic, I can't come up with a situation where we would do that just for fun. If it doesn't sit within developing our core project, or it's not an client.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking of it as actually sitting within developing your core project, but something that was perceived as very hard in this particular area. So should we bother even trying? Not something that's totally independent of what you're actually doing.
Yeah. I mean, if they want to spend a couple of hours having a think around it, and then it just unfortunately has to sit at the bottom.
Yeah.
Because our capacity to do that, just because we're small, we're small, bigger companies might, but yeah. So I think that probably also relates to Daniel's question about how long does it have to have an ROI? That depends, and the answer is usually pretty quickly, because again, our ability to carry long-term risk, back to Colin, we try and balance that about what that looks like, but any money that we're expending, we allocate how quickly that has to come back, and we have a standard set of ROIs that we would expect to return on that, just so I can keep the company growing and keep doing what we're doing. It's usually within months. We can't carry that for like years. I mean, maybe it will be, and that would be lovely, but usually months. So yeah, and that's the different timescales from academia. Like, it can't wait 2 years. I mean, it could, but it would have to have a really, really, really good reason for doing that, and it would have to be like that ongoing development. Okay, so so where do we get to? James, I think we've answered Chris's question. Yeah. So Kathy, how much of a stumbling block is confidentiality? It can be, and we've come up with twice we've not been able to go forward because of it, because where we drew our red line, the other side needed more. So I come from a defence background. Does there always have to be a publication? No, I don't think there does. I don't think there has to be a publication, but I'm not an academic. We do publish, and we publish what the company does. We go to conferences and we go to trade shows, but my reputation doesn't rely on a citation index or peer-reviewed journals. That's the truth. And again, there's a difference between that. So you have to have that open and honest conversation about what somebody would be able to publish and what they can't. And sometimes you have to walk away, and that's sad, but it's better for both parties, I would suggest. So here we go. Alan, how do we overcome the administrative hurdles when trying to find small amounts of money when we're bidding together? Oh, so
I mean, the thought behind this question is, universities can be unbelievably bureaucratic, and they won't let us try and put in a bid with you for some contract unless everything is signed, sealed. And then we have the KE Hub, which can enable some sort of possibly some extra risk to be taken. So no university money is at stake. So is there a magic formula where we can sort of use the KE Hub as a way of speculating a bit?
Should we chat about that? I honestly don't know. I have no idea. Christine, is that something that works? No.
I mean, it's a nice idea. Yeah, it's a nice idea. The tricky thing is you've then got two contracts, because you then have a contract with the KE Hub and the university and a contract with the KE Hub and the company, and it's thinking about how that gets managed. So is it adding one more complication into one more person in the chain to make it more complicated, or is it actually smoothing things over? I think it's one of those things that we keep banging our head against, is getting this this contracting process smooth. And I agree with Alan on terms of the pain. It's often, if you've got a contract that's just for a few £100 to go and do a day of doing something, they're sometimes the hardest ones to get through. So it's often a lot easier to get something very big through than it is to get something very small through.
And I think the definition of what big and small is varies as well. What might be enormous to me.
On the point of framework agreements, we once tried with Arup, who wanted to get a framework agreement with a university, and we discovered the university does framework agreements on its delivery side and has nothing to do with the research side of the organisation.
Chris?
All the questions?
Oh, I was just going to come in to add that in a number of conversations I've been having recently with the K Hub's business industry and government friends, that contracting has come up, and certainly with our government partners, the thought of having some intermediary who take the pain of the contracting away, so the company engages with one organisation rather than multiple universities, I think is seen as a very positive thing. So just saying to Sophie, we're thinking about it as a K Hub is something I want to say. And Alan, also, I'm happy to have a chat with you about what we're thinking about.
Oh, if that's what comes out of today, this will have been a good day.
Okay, I think let's thank Sophie again. Thank you very much. And I think we're going to move to the break. Just to say thank you, Sophie.